Good morning. Happy Wednesday. I'm releasing this on Wednesday. I know I'm recording it on Tuesday night. I saw this latest video come up from Delete Laws. Can I make this bigger? Let me zoom in a little bit. Fire Anthony Nardini, liar, abusive, beta male, aggressive, abuses power, Tempe police tyrant. Tempe police officer Anthony Nardini needs to be fired. Share your story with me about Nardini in Arizona. And it's your it's a repeat of this video and this video, both of which I had in my watch later. There's Tempe, cop gets destroyed, and Tempe police officer is speechless. Sadly, he doesn't know the law. So this is like 3 times that Chillie DeCastro has used this particular video to try to monetize it. This time he has anonymous sources, considering how he apparently tried to get people to say things fraudulently on affidavits in the last Kate Peters issue. I wouldn't really trust any confidential, in quotes, victims. So, that's just me. And then there's 2 minutes of spinning delete laws to try to get monetization. Anyway, I've been meaning to make a video on this one for a long time, so I'm not going to go through it. If you want to watch it, go ahead and watch it. Nardini is very calm. The initial officer is very calm, polite, professional. I don't see anything that they did untoward. And let's just go into a few assertions that Chillie makes. Number one, there is this right here is the Mueller Commission report. Chillie likes to reference it. Mueller report. He likes to reference it. I don't know why. It's from almost 30 years ago, and it is a report that was commissioned by the city of New York to determine what kinds of corruption were happening in the police department and how to fix it. Specifically in New York, 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. And they found these are the kinds of corruption that's going on, and these are the kinds of things we can do to fix it. And I just want to point out that one thing they say: this commission can confidently report that the vast majority of New York City police officers are honest and hardworking and serve the city with skill and dedication each day. It also appears that the work of this commission and the attitude of the department's current leadership has resulted in a determined commitment to fighting police corruption. So, what we can tell from this: number one, it is not based on the Constitution. This is an investigation. It's not a criminal investigation. It's just an investigation that the city of New York commissioned to have a judge and some other people go in, do interviews, do audits, check files, things like that, to figure out what kinds of corruption were occurring and to figure out best practices to try to reduce or potentially eliminate that corruption. That's it. That's it. That is the whole commission report. It doesn't hold that police are pigs or anything like that. Number two is Pennsylvania versus Mims. Pennsylvania versus Mims. The crux of the holding is that if you've been detained, there's no real difference between you being detained and sitting in your car or you being detained and sitting outside of your car. Either way, you're detained. Where you end up waiting doesn't change the fact that you're waiting. And it's a de minimis intrusion on your liberty to go from having to be inside the car to having to be outside the car. It's literally where people pull, where the cop said you have to get out of the car. It is not necessarily based on safety. The state freely concedes the officer had no reason to suspect foul play from the particular driver at the time of the stop, and there had been nothing unusual or suspicious about his behavior. It was apparently his practice to order all drivers out of their vehicles as a matter of course whenever they had been stopped for a traffic violation. The fact pattern in Mims is that Mims had been pulled over for an expired license plate. They stopped the vehicle to issue him a citation. They ordered him out of the vehicle. They noticed a bulge. So now crime's afoot, i.e., the expired license plate. Terry, they have reason to believe he's armed. Reasonable articulable suspicion because of the bulge. They pat him down. It's a gun. They arrest him for carrying a deadly weapon, concealed deadly weapon. And it's fine. It passes constitutional muster. They can order him out of the vehicle because it doesn't really change the calculation. Sitting inside the vehicle, sitting outside the vehicle, either way you're detained. Now, can the cops order you to stay inside the vehicle? Yes, they can. There's State versus Webster, which is an Arizona Court of Appeals, 1991. If a passenger can be ordered out of a vehicle for the officer's safety, he can also be ordered back inside the vehicle for safety purposes. There is U.S. versus Williams, Ninth Circuit, applies to Arizona. We think the difference in ordering the passenger back inside the car is immaterial. If you could order him to get out of the vehicle, you could order him back inside the vehicle. Either way, you're detained. Where you're being detained, inside the vehicle or outside of the vehicle, doesn't change the calculations. Not really. The next big deal is Mueller versus Mina. Chillie makes a big deal. Oh, if I'm not armed and dangerous, I can't be handcuffed. You could be handcuffed if you're detained. Maybe. I mean, all of these things are maybe. It all depends on the facts and circumstances, yada, yada. But in this particular case, Mina's detention in handcuffs for the length of the search was consistent with their opinion in Michigan versus Summers. Inherent in Summers' authorization to detain an occupant of the place to be searched is the authority to use reasonable force to effectuate the detention. Fourth Amendment jurisprudence has long recognized that the right to make an arrest or investigatory stop necessarily carries with it the right to use some degree of physical coercion or threat thereof to effect it. Indeed, Summers itself stressed that the risk of harm to officers and occupants is minimized if the officers routinely exercise unquestioned command of the situation. The officer's use of force in the form of handcuffs to effectuate Mina's detention in the garage, as well as the other three occupants, was reasonable because the government interest outweighed the marginal intrusion. So you can be handcuffed if you're detained, depending on the facts. And cops can use force or the threat of force to effectuate a detention or an arrest, as long as it's reasonable and commensurate, blah, blah, blah. So I'm not going to go over all of it, but this is a very frustrating video because Chillie's full sovereign citizen and he doesn't understand a lot of things. Oh yeah, another thing. Color of law. He talks about 18 U.S.C. 242, color of law. Color of law. Well, let's not talk about color of law for a second. Police have the lawful authority to arrest somebody if they have probable cause to believe that they did X, Y, and Z. If they have observed the things well, actually, let's make it even more cut and dry. If a police officer has a warrant issued by a judge for the arrest of a person, the police officer can effectuate the arrest of that person, right? He has the lawful authority to do that. Now, what happens if that police officer lied to get the warrant? He still has that. He still has that arrest warrant. So if he makes the arrest, he's arresting under color of law, because it appears that he has the authority to do it. And until you challenge it in court, or until that gets challenged in court, we don't know either way. So 18 U.S.C. 242 is where the United States challenges that in the form of a criminal proceeding. 42 U.S.C. 1983 is where a civil rights lawsuit can be filed to challenge it. The reason why they call it color of law is because you don't know until the court adjudicates it whether or not it was lawful. So it looks like it was lawful. It has the trappings of being lawful. But we don't know yet until a court says either way that it was lawful or it wasn't lawful. We don't know which it is. Does that make sense? Color of law just means that we don't know if it was lawful or if it wasn't lawful. But it looks like it was lawful. It had the trappings of being lawful. The person who was doing it thought they had the lawful authority to do it. And it's not until a judge or a jury determines that it was or was not lawful, that's when we're going to know. So it's color of law until it's determined by a court. Does that make sense? So if someone's acting under color of law, we don't know whether or not they have the lawful authority to do it until a judge says they have the lawful authority to do it, because it hasn't been legally determined yet. This is the full text of the Constitution. Accost does not appear in it. Watch the video. It's hilarious. The cop asks Chillie, "Do you know what the definition of accost is?" Because Chillie talks about physically accosting. I think Chillie meant physically assaulting, but he said accosting, and it was just a hilarious moment in the video. Anyway, 3 videos on the same thing. If you watch the video, this guy's cool and calm the entire time. Chillie's acting a fool the entire time. It's stupid. Oh, 8 minutes. Chillie says in the video that the cops only have 8 minutes to detain him. Somewhere in here. Anyway, he says somewhere in here the cops have 8 minutes to conduct the detainment, but the whole thing lasts about 12 minutes. It lasts about 12 minutes, 11 minutes and change. So, I mean, I don't know why Chillie would say that, because this particular detention lasted 12 minutes. And I'm going to say finally, because it's all I really care about, is Chillie lost. Chillie was found guilty, sentence imposed. Found guilty, sentence imposed. So all of Chillie's bluster, all of Chillie's pulling out his poster. The dude pulled out his poster to try to educate the cop on the side of the road. And I'm using the word educate loosely. He pulled out his poster. He unrolled his poster. Who does that? Who thinks to themselves, I'm going to educate this cop. I'm going to pull out my poster. Look at my poster. Like anybody's going to be impressed with a poster. Insanity. Anyway, thanks for watching. Have a great day.